Hello creative friends, I'm Anastasia and today's an exciting day because I'm using polymer clay for the first time and creating some adorable and functional pieces. Let's go ahead and get into it. For this first project, I'm inspired by several different clay brush holders that I've seen on Pinterest. This is my first time trying polymer clay, so I wanted to try some simple designs that anybody can do, even if you're new to this like me. To make all of these projects today, I'll be using the Sculpey Oven Bake Clay. It starts out pretty firm, so I'm just rolling it and squeezing it between my hands to warm it up to get it soft enough so that I can roll it out. I'll link the clay I'm using below for you. I'm rolling it out to about 1/4 of an inch. You can measure it if you want to be exact, but you don't have to. Eyeballing it is just fine. Then I'm taking my X-Acto knife to just kind of eyeball how wide I want to cut the piece. I use 2 fingers to give me my measurement, and it's about 1 inch wide. So once I have that cut, I'm just using my hands to round out all of the hard edges so that everything is nice and smooth. To make this into a brush holder, obviously we need a place for the brushes to lay, so I'll be bending this into several cute little squiggles. This clay is extremely easy to work with and is very forgiving, so if you need to kind of shape it and reshape it, then that's totally fine. So I'm really just going for it here, shaping it the best I can with my hands. If you wanted to, you could use something to help you shape each squiggle. So for example, you can use something that's a tube shape like a marker or a pin or a straw and kind of bend the clay over it to give you that squiggle shape if you don't want to try to form it completely by hand. It was a little bit longer on one side, but I was liking how my squiggles were looking, so I decided to just trim off that excess so that it was even on both sides. Now I'm just rounding out all of the edges and nail marks that I made in the clay. I was too excited and I couldn't wait, so I went ahead and tested it out as a brush holder, and it's absolutely perfect. I'm following the package instructions, so I baked it at 275 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 minutes per 1/4 inch thickness. I ended up baking it closer to 30 minutes just to be safe, because it's always better to bake it a little longer than for it not to be completely cured. After it's completely cooled, it's time to paint it with acrylic paint. I wanted to go bold and fun on the colors with this one, so I'll be using pink and orange, which really have a cool retro 70s vibe to me, which I thought really fit with the squiggly lines. I did 2 coats of pink to get full coverage. And once that has dried, I'm going in with 2 coats of the orange just on the sides of it. Once that's dry, I'm sealing it with this Varathane water-based polyurethane sealer. I already had this on hand and it isn't a matte finish, but I found that even though it says matte, it actually does have a little bit of a shine to it, so it won't be totally flat. I gave it 2 coats on both sides. Not only can this be used for paintbrushes, but it can be used for makeup brushes or even chopsticks. I really love how cute this turned out. Let me know in the comments what you think. For this next project, I'm going to try to recreate this adorable avocado jewelry dish that I saw on Pinterest. I'm just warming up the clay in my hands and then rolling it out to about 1/4 of an inch thick. Because this needs to be shaped like an avocado, I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and just kind of run it along to create a line in the surface of the clay to eyeball the shape of an avocado. Just very lightly, I'm not cutting all the way through yet. And whenever I mess up, which definitely happened, I'm just using my finger to rub out the line and try again. And whenever I'm happy with the shape, I went ahead and cut all the way through the clay. To make it an actual jewelry dish, we need to make the outside walls of it higher than the inside, so that it's able to hold the jewelry properly without it kind of falling off the edge. I'm using my hands to just push down into the clay, but I'm not going to push down the part where the avocado pit is going to be. I've taken my X-Acto knife and kind of drawn a circle in the surface where that pit is going to be so that I don't push down on that part. I'm just continuously using my hands to shape this tray, rounding out all of the hard edges and just continuing to work with it until I'm happy with the way it looks. This is definitely a process where you don't want to give up too soon, because if you just keep working with it, then it does eventually start to take shape and hopefully start looking the way you envisioned it. The great thing about polymer clay is that it doesn't dry until it's baked, so you have all the time in the world, literally, to shape this exactly the way you want it, and you don't have to worry about it drying out or getting cracks. That is something that while working with this clay for the first time, I just really fell in love with. If you want to, now is a good time to take something and write on the back if you're giving this to someone or if you just want to sign your name on the back. I baked this at 275 degrees Fahrenheit for about 30 minutes and I let it cool completely before painting. And here's where things start to get slightly questionable. I didn't know until after I'd painted this that watercolor paints really do not belong on polymer clay, because it doesn't adhere to the clay very well. But I didn't have the colors I needed in acrylic paint. So here we are going in with this yellow and green watercolor paint, and I have a bit of water on the side to help me blend the colors. Polymer clay is really water resistant, and so the water and watercolor paint have nothing to soak into. So if you decide to try these projects, definitely use acrylic paint like I did in the first project, because that's going to give you the best results. But if you're curious of how watercolor may work on polymer clay, I suppose that I will be the experiment and you can see how it turns out for me. So I wanted to give it a gradient look where it's lighter around the middle and the darkest around the edges. So I'm blending from the yellow to light green to dark green, going towards the outside edge. I used a combination of the brush and my fingers to get the colors the way I wanted them to be. Then I let that dry overnight because I knew the watercolor would have trouble adhering anyways, so I wanted to give it adequate time to completely dry the best it could. Now I'm taking some brown acrylic paint and just painting over the pit. Once it dries, I'm going to seal it. So I decided to use this Rust-Oleum water-based clear protectant spray, and I gave it 3 coats total to make sure that all the paint was really locked in. I was very nervous to use the polyurethane sealer because it does need to be brushed on, and I thought that would be risky because it would re-wet the watercolor and make it smear. Again, I would just recommend using acrylic paint if you decide to try this at home. Here's how this cute little tray turned out. For this project, I'm again rolling out the clay to about 1/4 inch thick. This one's going to be a coaster, so I'm just going to make it round, and I had this candle that was the perfect size. I'm using my X-Acto knife to just clean up any excess, and then using my fingers to smooth out the rough edges. I am continuously amazed at how easy this is to work with. It smooths out so easily just by using your hands. I baked this at 275 degrees Fahrenheit for about 30 minutes, and after it completely cooled, I painted over it with some white acrylic paint. Then I made a watery mixture of brown, red, and white to create a dark rosy pink color. I used watercolor paint here too, but this is another instance that I should have used acrylic. So I mixed that up with some water so that it was quite runny. Then I'm using my thumb to flick the brush to give it a speckled pattern. Just make sure that you wipe off the excess drips from the brush beforehand. When that dries, I'm using this permanent fine tip marker to write something cute on it. Turns out that permanent marker doesn't like to stick to polymer clay that well either, but you know, at least I've learned a lot of the do's and don'ts of polymer clay during this process, and I'm very determined to make it work anyways. I thought Gimme the Tea was just an adorable thing to write on a coaster. I was very careful to let it dry completely overnight and not touch it at all. I'm going in with the Rust-Oleum water-based clear protectant spray on this as well, giving it 3 coats total, drying in between. I've been using this coaster every day since making it, and it's held up great, and I hope you love it as much as I do. Let me know in the comments if you've ever tried polymer clay before, or if you're hoping to try it out for the first time soon. I hope you found some inspiration in this video to take with you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.